Well, we've got some very interesting people in the area. We really don't know the resources that we have that are local. Like within a 100-kilometer radius, we have a lot of really interesting and intelligent and serving and organizations and people that are just.
Oh yeah, people willing to give, and I mean the churches are full of people that are just like, hey, let me serve, let me bless you in one other way.
But more than that, you take the food bank people. My wife's sat on the board of the food bank now for the last 5 or 6 years, and the Matt Stockfords, the names escape me now, but this wonderful your generation of people who are coming up and picking up that mantle and just, it's great, Ben. It's great. Oh no, I mean for someone like Annie, Lori, and I that are a little farther up the the age scale, to see that happening is very, very encouraging. Very, very encouraging.
What do you think is the difference between the Like, is it something where us millennials have really struggled, and it's been like, because we went through 9/11, the 2008 financial crash, and like now we're adults and we're like, ah.
Yeah. Well, I think every generation has had its, mine was the Vietnam War, all the riots, the bomb scares, atomic era. So every generation has its own, and the generation before us was World War II, and then World War I, and so I think the thing that has been the most influential on your generation has been how quickly we find out about things.
With the cell phones and social media, just like
absolutely, it's instant. We watched the recent one, the Charlie Kirk shooting, pretty much in real time. Within seconds, it's posted. So that's a new thing that you and your generation deal with that mine didn't.
I wonder if that's not more traumatic too. There's my former therapist. Actually, I'm going to have her on soon and to talk about those sort of things, because it's something that I think affects us. Because otherwise, like, your generation would have been newspaper and TV, whereas now, and have you seen that shift too? Like, watching it change, has it been kind of overwhelming?
I don't know whether it's been overwhelming. It's been at times. Overload, but not to the point of being overwhelmed. I think sometimes now you get to be a little skeptic. When the Telegraph Journal printed it, you had a confidence in the Telegraph Journal. Now, because of, and especially now since AI,
everything you're questioning.
Well, we're still a very gullible generation. We actually believe that things are going to work out, and primarily or mostly, and so it's been a neat, and
because you should be able to trust people. That's something I even noticed, like, coming from a kid, you could trust your neighbors, you could trust the news, and then now with, like you said, AI and clickbait, and it's changed so dramatically that for the worse, arguably, in many situations.
And there is so much attention put on it. You can hardly watch anything that doesn't say, or you're not told, be careful of this scam, be careful of that scam, be careful of this scam. Don't, the banks don't call, they don't call and say that you're over, so there's all of those. So you get to the point. I remember having this conversation with somebody with regards to the Parole Board of Canada. As you know, I spent 3 years on the board. And there's about 85 parole board officers parole board members across the country, 80 plus at any given time. And they handle about 22,000 decisions a year. Okay? And out of those 22,000, there's about 400 to 450. When I was there, it was about 400 to 450 breaches. Now, these were most of them were not repeat offending as much as what they were breaches of the conditions in which they were released on. So the success rate was over 98%. But if the media reports one a day, then the system's broken. When in fact, no, the system's working really, 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 really well. But again, it's how that comes out, how it's skewed, how it's, and
taken out of proportion,
taken
or
out of
context,
and or perhaps when then you get to a little bit of conspiracy thinking thrown in there with we're going to use it to do something, we don't know what. So yeah, but anyway, happy to be here though.
All right, here I'm gonna change the lighting on this just a pinch.
Sure.
And then I'll do a little intro for you. There we go, that's better. All right, Mitch MacMillan, you spent 30 years as a law enforcement officer between the RCMP. You were the chief of police in the town of Woodstock. You are now a blueberry farmer with your son and an author, which I think is something new or upcoming more than new. So what I'm really looking forward to, I've actually got some friends who are RCMP and are police enforcement or law enforcement, and so it's hard to talk to somebody because they want to control the narrative, right? But there's a lot of heartache and headache when people talk about law enforcement and talk about what's going on. Like there's local thefts and there's drugs, and so it's difficult to be able to talk about that. But from your perspective, what is law enforcement dealing with other than what just the public perception that says all cops are bad, or what do you feel is really going through the mind of a regular RCMP officer or a police officer in the town of Woodstock?
Wow, nothing like a really easy question right from the start, Ben.
You've got unique experience, and I think being able to lend that side of it, because I think a lot of people... Oh, my timer for our meeting. Yeah, you've got a unique experience and ability to be able to talk about that, because I think people don't really see it from the other side. Mm-hmm. They see, like you just mentioned, all the news clippings of stuff and here's how our healthcare system has failed. Here's how the policing system has failed.
Right.
Here's how the justice system has failed.
Right.
So what is, what do you feel police are dealing with now?
Oh, wow. Well, I think the first thing that I would premise with you is that people do not get into law enforcement, emergency services, of emergency response of any kind with the idea of doing a bad job. In fact, if you were to poll, and I've done this with many, many officers, what their reasoning was in joining, it wasn't money. It wasn't prestige. It wasn't even a pension at the end. Almost, like I said, a large majority come back with the same answers. I wanted to serve, and I want to make a difference. So, keeping that as my premise, everything that they do, whether they mean to or not, is based on those personal belief system, or on their own personal belief system, which includes those two things primarily. And but what I have seen over the last, and now I've been out of policing for 13 years. That's hard to imagine.
A lot has happened in 13
years. A lot has
years.
happened. But the officers of today are dealing with some of the things that we talked about earlier, and that is the overwatch that is happening with them. It is not uncommon for them, I'm sure, to get to a scene and there may be 15 people standing there. And by the way, the criminal code allows a police officer who needs help to say, Ben, yes, you, I want you to come and help me. And if you say no, there's actually a criminal charge for that. But instead, what they got now is 15 people standing around with cell phones. And you say, well, yeah, but that's for accountability. I don't think so. The policing agencies now have all kind of accountability structure. For example, every police officer in the province of New Brunswick must meet policing standards. Every police agency must meet policing standards. And this is a standard across the province. Every province has them. Years ago, that was not true. It wasn't in place. But there is no, well, the RCMP are better trained, and no, that's not true. It was at one time, absolutely, but not when you put in a policing standard, which is common again pretty much throughout the country. You have to go through a recognized policing training program, and it has to be recognized. So it's not just anybody wants to start up one. It has to be a recognized program. So, and there has to be certain, even when you get into senior management, there has to be certain criteria that have to be met. So a lot has and a lot has not changed. And what hasn't changed is, again, the officers don't get up in the morning to say, you know what, I just want to make somebody have a bad day. I just want to, they don't do that, Ben. They get caught in the situations where they see you at your worst period of time. You have a problem that you've been working on for 15 years. They come in and you want them to fix it in 35 seconds. Because McDonald's can give us food and that we are a bit of a fast food,
Yeah.
We put it in the microwave. There it is, So I don't know if that's answering your question or not, but one of the, starting from that point, then we have to look at all the other factors that are associated to that. And they are social factors for the most part. The expectations, we used to say that we wore many hats. One night, in an 8-hour shift, I could be a priest, I could be a dad, I could be a cheerleader, I could be a fireman, I had to be a policeman. So they wear a multitude of hats. A social worker, an expert in child psychology, all of these things, and so.
All while thinking about what the Facebook post about you is going to be because of that incident.
Absolutely. And whether or not it even if it's, typically what we get is what's called a sound bite. You know those. We get a 30-second or a 20-second sound bite of a 15-minute process. So we get where the individual has gone through all of the steps to, okay, I've got to take some physical action. That's what gets, so now, the police are this and that. And, I'm not naive enough to think that, the system isn't perfect. It's the 80-20 rule kind of runs through every profession. And maybe not 80-20, but 90-10. 90% are wonderful. 10% shouldn't be there. As a chief of police and as a former senior manager in the RCMP, I can tell you that I dealt with 10% of my officers 90% of my time. You're trying to develop them. The other ones sometimes get lost in the mix even, but and these 10% sometimes makes mistakes. They don't want to. They don't mean to in most cases. And the ones that do mean to are quickly dealt with. There is a development, when you take people coming from all different backgrounds and you're trying to mold them into a single entity, there are struggles. So today, and I've had this conversation with many of the mayors as well. When I would go to a meeting, and we met regularly, the mayors and myself when I was with the RCMP and also as chief in Woodstock. When the biggest complaint I had was somebody speeding or somebody running an ATV down the road, I was happy, Ben. Yeah. I was happy. If that's our biggest issue, I'm really pleased. Our officers are doing what they need to do. So one of the things that I think we need to help the community understand is the difference between community policing and crime reduction. If you think of crime reduction, it's like a three-legged stool. You have an engagement and education, which is part of the community-based policing model. But the third stool is enforcement. So when you have all three of them working together, you will see crime reduce. Remember I talked about the 90-10? In the criminal world, it's about 5% of the population that causes 95% of the issues. So crime reduction was a focused, and still is, a focused effort to deal with those 5%. Now there's still, you are going to hear the stories. Going to work, was a little late. So they pulled me over and gave me a $300 ticket, That happens. Why aren't you focusing on the real criminals? They are. They are. So,
but if you don't focus on all of the rules, then, like you said, that three-legged stool, it sort of bounces between, okay, speeding is dangerous, whether you're going to work or not, that can be extremely dangerous. So those still need to be enforced while still dealing with drugs and theft.
Right, and typically what you probably don't know is that there is a tracking, because crime reduction is stat-based. So there is a tracking of where incidents occur. So if we see that there's one little area that has had multiple accidents in the last 6 months, then the enforcement goes there, along with the education and engagement. You'll see a lot of school talks. You'll see a lot of talks to organizations. You'll see them getting involved, trying to have the community understand what's happening. And because you need the community engagement and the education in order for the enforcement to have the effect that you want. And the enforcement is not, again, it's targeted. It's not random. I used to ask my officers, when you go out the driveway and you put on your right blinker, why are you going right? If you're just driving around burning gas, stay in the office. Go with purpose. So and that still happened. My resourcing has always been an issue.
What do you mean by resourcing?
The amount of people that you could put on the boots on the ground at any one given point. And most of my career, my later career, we ran between 15 and 25% short constantly for very good reasons. It's just that the system wasn't in place to backfill those. Unlike when our muni forces have the ability to hire part-time, the RCMP does not. We do, but it's not a common thing. You don't hire somebody for 6 months to look after a maternity, for example. So if somebody is off on sick leave, that position is not filled. So that leaves a hole. Well, if out of 50 officers, you have 10 of them, which is not uncommon, that you can't fill, then that leaves a significant hole. I mean, the work is still there. So that's why you get the 2-hour wait before you can talk to somebody. and that breeds
Contempt.
and frustration. And I pay your wages, absolutely. And those young men and women know who they are working for. They really do. So,
Do you feel there's a lack of understanding from the general public as to what the role or even the jobs and duties of a law enforcement officer are?
yeah, because I think that's changed from the time that you were a child or for a young fellow running around to now. The expectations that you had back then still are with you. Well, they may not be realistic anymore. We don't have the ability to have a police car go to every parade at every little, we just don't do that. We can't do that anymore. Well, that's not again, that's, so I think the expectations have changed, and the ability to reach those expectations, although wanting to be done, it is still based on finances. It's still built, and we don't want our taxes going up so we can attend a parade. So
what's changed then between back then and now? Is it a cultural shift, or is there just legitimately more crime that's going on?
I don't believe there's more crime. There's probably you have to be careful about stats. Because the stats say that there's more crime doesn't necessarily mean there's more crime. It means that there's been more crime reported. Completely different. Completely different. So, the measure you will get the measure of crime by, remember what I told you about going and hearing about the speeding and the four-wheelers and the loud parties? Okay. That's my measure of crime. That's my local, I know what's happening, not what Stats Canada is telling me, but that's my okay, my litmus test is right here. Now, of course, when you have a rash of break-and-enters, thefts, and we've had them everywhere. Again, it's 5%. So crime reduction focuses on the 5%. They get no breaks. We have to have a stop. We have to have a break. And it was interesting flipping hats as a parole board officer, a parole board member coming, I wasn't a parole officer, I was a parole board member. So I went to the prisons and had the hearings. And to have them come and to see people who talked about that and how they understand now that the difference between their association and who they associated with and how much of an influence that had and why they were doing it. Drugs. So that whole escape from reality is a new thing. We didn't have that in my generation. It started, you started to see it in yours, and now it's even more prevalent, whereby young folk are having a very difficult time in dealing and again, I think it's for all the reasons that we talked about. I read it in the newspaper 7 days after it happened. You get it 7 seconds after it happens. And it's like, whoa, hey, I don't have the time to process this. I can't, so.
And there's 10 of those a day.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you hear about somebody's wheeler gets stolen, somebody's
Right.
garage got broken into,
Right.
Somebody died of an overdose.
Right. Exactly.
So it feels like it's all happening at once.
Right. Yeah. When in fact yours, it still may happen, but we just didn't know about it.
Now, I know you've been out of law enforcement for a while, but
Yeah.
do you feel that, given that people are trying to dissociate from reality, which I can't blame them one bit for a lot of the things that they see and what's going on, but do you feel that there's been a rise in organized crime because of that?
For 5 years, I was the staff sergeant in charge of border integrity and we dealt with organized crime. So if you're talking about crime that's being organized locally, that's always been here. 3 or 4 people, they get together over a box of beer and they come up with a plan. If you're talking about drug cartel, mafia, that high level organized crime, we do have tentacles of that. However, it's probably not to the level that everybody sometimes thinks it is because of watching true crime on TV that's solved in a half hour. My wife refused to let me watch TV. So it was like, you know, I mean...
You get too critical of it?
Oh, here she comes prancing through a murder scene, or this actor or actresses, and they don't... If you've ever been to a murder scene, I mean, they are dressed up like there's no DNA leaving them, you know? I mean, so... But yeah, so... So I don't know, man, what the answer is.
Because I've been hearing a lot recently with regards to organized crime coming from the States, or even you see like the Chinese, like the CCP, are buying up land. I was listening to something yesterday about they're buying up a ton of land to grow marijuana in Maine specifically. Yeah. But I can only assume with it, if it's in Maine, it's right across the border here in New Brunswick.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. We are a porous border, you know, for as much as we do. So you understand, the ports of entry are the responsibility of Canada Border Services. All the ground in between is the responsibility of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. That's a lot of area. The western side of New Brunswick for federal policing, and wow, you know, I tell you, those men and women do a fabulous job. They do a fabulous job, Ben. So yeah, do we get? Oh yes, we don't have a. We do have some coming into Canada, but it's primarily weapons. The drugs seem to be going the other way. When I was doing it, we would have marijuana being grown in New Brunswick, taken over and either exchanged, and or guns being brought back into the province. Yeah, primarily handguns. Some rifles and automatic weapons, but primarily handguns. Yeah. So...
is that then contributing to or via the organized crime, like the cartels and mafia?
Yeah, yeah, and some of those weapons were used in very serious crime in Quebec and Ontario primarily. Yeah, so and that was, I mean, I'm talking 15 years ago. You know, so there's no doubt with the we didn't have drones that could just fly across and drop a package. So it's very, very sophisticated, or more sophisticated now on more avenues. Technology, although has been our friend, it's also
people are going to use it to their advantage to do bad things.
For sure, yeah. We have some very, very, very smart people. We used to joke that, boy, if we could get them in a room, we'd have a cure for cancer quite quickly, because they're really intelligent people, just doing some things that. Yeah.
Sometimes the right way doesn't pay as much as the bad side.
Yeah, true. But yeah.
How much is the hands of law enforcement tied for what they are and are not allowed to do within the confines of arrests? Or like there's been a lot of talk recently of jail not bail, and people getting released and then reoffending.
Yes.
Is that, from your perspective, still a problem?
You have to look at what the roles are. Police are peace officers. Their primary role is the keeping of the peace. They're not there for sentencing. They're there to enforce what the courts put in place. Some of the things you're talking about are more politically motivated than policing motivated. Do they have an effect? Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. And is it as frustrating to them as it is for the general public? Absolutely, absolutely. When you take somebody and you have them beat you back home from the courthouse after you've just spent copious amount of time trying to stop and then 2 weeks later there's a reoffending. So there are individuals, Ben, I believe, there are individuals in our society that are what we called in policing prolific offenders. They're the cream of the cream. And the only thing that you can do is to take them out of society for a period of time. Their belief system is such that what they are doing, the amount of it, I had to explain to me this way once. The amount of energy you would have to expend in order to change their core value beliefs of what they are doing being wrong would be the same as convincing the Pope that there's no God. I'm like, wow, that's pretty interesting. So,
especially if you've got a mind completely different, your morals, you're raised in a church or whatever, and you're like, okay, it's very black and white what right and wrong is. But if you've got generational trauma or you've never experienced or were taught that difference between right and wrong, then what may be wrong for somebody else is always going to be right for you.
Yeah, and it's funny, you talk about generational trauma. There's very few generations that don't have it. There's very few people that don't have it. So I come to the conclusion a while ago that, and it's not my idea, I stole this from somebody else. It's not the environment that has the influence on the child as much as the child's reaction to that environment. Because you will know of families that have 5 kids, 4 of them are doctors, and the 5th one just goes, all have the same upbringing, same genetic pool, but their response or their reaction to that, to their environment was completely different than what the other 4 were. In my family, there are 4 boys. All 4 of us became RCMP officers. And we have a nephew. I have a nephew that's a Mountie as well. So we all responded the same way.
Was that in your family prior?
No.
What was that draw into law enforcement? For you specifically. I guess you can't speak for your brothers or your nephew, but
there was 2 things that happened in my life that changed my direction, I think. One was the loss of a really close friend. His name was Calvin Kennedy. He was 17. We were both 17. We were graduating from high school the following year. We were in grade 11. And Calvin was killed in a car accident. And his mom and dad asked myself and 3 other friends to bury him. And I remember standing at his gravesite with a shovel, thinking, I'm going to do something to stop somebody else from having to go through this. Now, it may sound a little cliche, and even as I say it, it kind of does, but that was a turning point. My personality has always been a kind of a peacekeeper, underdog, defender sort of thing. So that plays into that role too. And then the third and final thing was, so I trained to be a force technician before I joined the force. I went to the Maritime Force Ranger School. And I was working about halfway up Bald Peak, up above Plaster Rock, in the middle of the winter. And I was running a loader. We were hauling out birch, 8-foot birch, slippery. And it was an open loader, middle of January, 175 below zero, in those days. And the snow was 40 feet high. But anyway, and I had a clam full of logs, and I raised up the arm, and a hydraulic hose busted, and I got doused in hydraulic fluid. So we, got by the fire, got dried out as best I could, whatever. And I said, there's got to be something better than this. And so then after I graduated from high school, I put an application into the RCMP, and I waited 3 years. So while I was waiting, I went to the Maritime Forest Ranger School. And I was actually working for Fraser Company in Plasterock, cruising in the woods, doing volume calculations. When I got the call to go to Regina for summer camp, and as they say, the rest is history. Yeah. So.
How true is the quota system for tickets? I see every month the RCMP posts on Facebook that 133 vehicles were stopped and they gave so-and-so tickets for unsafe vehicles. Is that a true thing, or is that something that people have ascribed to just an event that sort of happens?
Yeah. There is no such thing as a quota. Okay? What I would tell my officers is, I don't care how many tickets you give. I want you to stop vehicles. Now, if you stop vehicles, you're going to get tickets. But I could care less. But during your shift, try and stop 3 vehicles. As a chief in Woodstock, we, and I think they probably still do this to some degree, on Friday and Saturday nights at 6 o'clock, we checked everything that moved. The reason, Ben, is because people say, holy man, they're out in full force tonight. By 8:30 that night, you could shoot a cannon down through Main Street. So it was a prevention. And we used to carry stickers and gift cards and whatever. And I said, don't just catch them doing something wrong. Catch them doing something right. You see 3 kids in car seats and a mom driving, you pull her over and you say, Mom, well done. Well done. Here's a Tim Hortons gift card. Go buy these little ones a donut or whatever it was. Dairy Delight were really good. They always used to give us little ice cream certificates. So, yeah, it was more, we wanted to catch them doing something good to reinforce that than, oh, no, you were 2 kilometers over the speed limit. So no, there is no quota. There never has been a quota. Although, we do have some people who are more, they are more officers who are good interviewers, officers who are really good investigators, officers who are really good at traffic. And then we have some, like myself, if you get a ticket from me, you need to frame it, have me sign it, because
it's rare.
It's rare. It's going to be worth something someday. I was the investigator, interviewer. That was my strength, not out, but yet, but you do need, again, remember I talked about the targeted enforcement. When you're finding that you've got, because again, we're peacekeepers, we want to keep people's lives safe, and it's not fun, Ben, having done some of the things that I've done. Coming home, sitting on your bed and crying because of the loss of potential that what happened that night. So that kind of drives us too, especially as we get a little more experience and you start to see more. Typically about 5 years, you've seen pretty much everything in 5 years. So, yeah.
Do you think that makes some, or did you even see some other officers become more jaded throughout the years, that you see some of this stuff and you just, it's not worth it. It's too hard.
Yeah. And I don't know they're jaded as much as frustrated, Because again, they join to serve and make a difference. And everything they're doing is being looked upon as being not service and causing issues, you know? I mean, how many times do people tell us, you've ruined my life? No, you had a good handle on that before I showed up. Yeah, I brought it to the surface perhaps, but yeah, you were doing a pretty good job before I showed up. But you're right, it does cause, it causes us all to think about what we are doing and how we are doing it. And there are times when we need to change some of the techniques that we are using because they weren't serving and they weren't helping, you know. So yeah, does that make sense?
Absolutely. And I actually welled up there for a second because the way you describe pulling somebody over and giving them a Tim Horton, like that is policing. That's what I see as not law enforcement. That's a bad phrase, but as serve and protect your community, to take care of your community.
That's education and engagement.
Yeah.
That's two of the three legs of that stool of crime reduction. Those types of things, you are so right, aids in crime reduction because, Ben, a police officer or police agency is only as good as the community will allow them to be. We're not there. We need people telling us what happened so that we can respond to it. So yeah. No, well put. That was.
I feel too that there's a detrimental view, and I think it's grown exponentially, especially since COVID. A detrimental view of policing and law enforcement that has really led to people calling the police less. Because they don't see that it's worth it, it's not valuable, they're just going to be a pain in the ass, or they're going to be in my way. How do you feel that we could turn around that perspective? Because even I think we're seeing slants towards some vigilante justice, which isn't a good thing.
Yeah.
If you want to do that, get into policing. And so how do we change that cultural perspective away from police are bad to they're here to serve and protect?
Yeah. Well, I think we go back and reevaluate. And I think it's really, so you've probably heard the phrase, experience is the best teacher. That's a lie. Experience is not the best teacher. You and I both know all kinds of people who have all kinds of
Beating your head
experience
against the wall. Yeah.
and are as stupid today as what they were 25 years ago. No, evaluated experience is the best teacher. Taking the incident, breaking it down, and saying, what did we do well? What do we need to improve upon? And where did we go really bad, off the rails? So, one of the things that's happened over the years has been the change in social communication, especially with kids. When you and I were growing up, or you probably remember your mom or dad telling you, if you get lost, you find a policeman. They will help you. You find a policeman, they're going to help you out of whatever it is. If you're having whatever the trouble is, you find a policeman and they'll help. And now it's, don't trust them. You don't want to be, don't trust them. They're going to set you up. They're going to, so that subtle change that is being instilled from a young age, well, we carry that through and we repeat that. And so I think a little small step would be to see if we could change that narrative. And I think there's different ways of doing it. Again, we can't have a policeman. We don't have the resources to have one leading every parade of every place. But it was important because that's where we got in with the community and people realized, oh, the policemen are good. You know, I don't know how many pairs of gloves I gave away. You get to an accident scene. There's a little child there, or whatever, in the wintertime. They're standing. Take my gloves. put my gloves on and you know, and I want you to sit in my car, and you just hang on to my gloves, okay? You just hang on. That's an important job. I really want you to have. Then at the end of it, you keep them. Well, that little one goes away from that tragic, caught them at one of the worst times of their lives, and the policeman helped me. Our first postings were on Vancouver Island, and we were involved with a teenage youth group. And we left Vancouver Island. We're gone 20 years. 4 o'clock in the morning, the phone rings. And this lady says, Mitch? And I said, yes. She said, Mitch MacMillan? I said, yes. She said, were you a policeman in Ladysmith? And I went, yes. Who is this? She said, it's Tammy.
Tammy? I don't know a Tammy.
And she said, Tammy, and she told me what her last name was. And I went, oh my land, Tammy. She said, I was in the youth group. I said, yes, I remember you and your brother, Ben. Yeah. And she said, I've been trying to track you down for the last 10 years. And I finally found your, I think it might have been when Facebook was just starting or whatever. And she said, I wanted to call and tell you that I'm doing good. And thank you for what you did.
Wow.
When I was a teenager. She came from a very broken home. And she said, you know those songs that you used to sing to us? I sing them to my kids. Well, I'm crying, man. My wife was, what's up? I go, this is Tammy. But
so it's a public relations problem that everybody's so quickly hearing about, especially in the United States, hearing about the bad things that the police do, whereas, especially as individual officers, you want to make a difference in everybody's life.
Right.
But there's so much social media that want the clicks, that want the views of something bad happening, that there's not enough of that good media.
No.
And when people do see the good media, they perceive it as, oh, that they're trying to propagandize me.
Absolutely. There's some sort of a dark conspiracy behind it, why they're putting this out. I want to tell you one more story before we, and that about individual officers. We had a young officer. I'll keep the names out because I don't want to embarrass them. We had a young officer and his partner. They got called to a family fight in the area. It was Christmas Eve day. So they go and they arrive, and the tree has been torn down, thrown outside. The turkey's out in the yard. And there's no presents. There's nothing there. Actually, I don't even think there was a tree, now that I think about it. Those two officers settled. It actually settled quite quickly and easily. It wasn't a violent situation, but it was a very, the stresses of the season and not being able to do what they thought they should do, So those two officers get out in their cars and they're driving back to the office. And one of them picks up the mic and says, we got to do something. Okay. There was 2 children at the house. He said, we need to get something for those kids. Well, of course, when they're talking on the air, then every other officer in the area hears it, says, what's up, guys? Tell them what's up. So they tell the story. They said, meet us back at the office. So we go back to the office, and a little committee formed. And they started collecting money from each officer, and then started making some phone calls. And all of a sudden, the front door comes open, and one of the greeters says, yeah, there's Pat Saunders is out here to see you. Pat Saunders, he's passed away. A dear friend had Saunders towing an auto body, and well, Pat had a scanner, and he heard about what was happening. So Pat arrives and gives money towards that. Well, all of a sudden, other tow truck driver company come in, and there's more money coming in. So at the end of the day, I'm not sure the money count, it doesn't matter, but we had what was a big Suburban. We shut the office down to wrap Christmas presents that afternoon for these kids and mom and dad. Ben, I'm telling you, we shut the office down. We're in our conference room, Christmas music blaring, we're wrapping gifts. I mean, the feeling was just overwhelming. Then those two officers took that full load back out to that house and started carrying it in. Well, by the time they got back, everybody was crying, you know, but nothing was said. Wasn't advertised.
And there was no expectation of that.
None whatsoever. They wanted to serve and they wanted to make a difference. Those officers are still with us today. Now, those two are not. But the next generation is still with us today, whether it be a municipal force, because we did some wonderful things with the town police, with the Woodstock town police, just amazing stuff, incredible stuff. They're still there. So please, public, don't give up on us. Don't give up on your local police. They're neat people. They really are.
And they care about their community.
Oh, more than you know. More than you know. Yeah.
On the flip side of that,
yeah,
how much corruption is there, whether it's coming from higher ups or political types or even within RCMP or within town police? Is that something that you saw in your time on the force?
Never.
Really?
Never. Never. Did I see leaders that were unable to lead? Yes. Corruption? Never. Never saw it. Did I see incidents of individuals making bad decisions, stealing from the office? Yes. But never any corruption. Never did we have any political interference. There were often, it was neat because every 3 or 4 years you have a change of your local politicians, and so we always made it an important issue to ensure that we were able to educate them on what we do, because most people coming in didn't know what they said, we're going to do this and change this and whatever. So we would help them understand what the Constitution and what our Charter of Rights meant. So people don't understand, most people don't understand, Canada has a Constitution. It's the Constitution Act of 1982. In the Constitution Act of 1982 is the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. So we only hear about the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, but this is another document. It lays out what powers every province has and what powers the federal government has, and it's actually signed by, at that time, it was Queen Elizabeth. So the head of Canada, as you know, is the King. The head of our military is the King of England, and in his stead, the Governor General. So, but everybody gets focused on the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. But you really should spend some time looking at the Constitutional Act of 1982. It's basically our Bill of Rights. It's based on that from the Bill of Rights and Freedoms that we had prior to this enactment. And I was in policing prior to it coming into effect. So I policed prior to the Charter of Rights and policed after the Charter of Rights.
What was that like?
No difference.
Go figure.
No difference whatsoever. Yeah. The only difference was that because the Constitution implemented an ideology that the right of the individual supersedes the right of the group, that caused some decisions to be made from the court's point of view, which affected us down the road. But in what we did, no difference. Still needed a search warrant then, and you needed a search warrant now. So, yeah. So,
Why don't we take a quick break, and
Yeah.
then when we come back, we can talk about blueberries.
love that.
If you are enjoying this episode, I want you to subscribe to our Patreon. You can do it for free, or if you want to support us, because Lord knows that Facebook and YouTube are not paying me like anything to do these. And I would like to keep doing them. I'd love to hire a producer that can film this stuff so that we can do more of them and talk to more people that you want to. So if you go to patreon.com/homegrown show, you can join as a free or a paid member so you can have your say on guests who are coming on. You can ask questions that I can ask during the show, and you can help us out to be able to ask your questions, to be able to teach you more and cover topics of things that you want to see heard. Because I know you've got questions and the media is only doing what they want to do. I want to do what you want to do. I want to talk about things that you actually care about and talk to people that you actually care about in your community, in your province. We can make a difference. Go to patreon.com/homegrown show where you can learn more, become a member, chat with me. It's much easier over there than just comment sections, but leave a comment too. Like and subscribe and all that stuff. That helps. Back to the show.
I was just thinking about, I guess, a concluding thought on policing would be for me to tell you that we would love to have someone like yourself become an officer. It is a noble profession. You do make a difference. At the end of the day, you do feel satisfied. Sometimes quite frustrated because you'd like to do more. But if anybody is thinking about it, I think it's something that they should look into.
That's why I wanted to be a doctor for the longest time, was just to help people. I mean, that's always the cliche of like, oh, you want to help people? Well, everybody wants to help people. Why?
Not everybody does.
That's true.
No. Not everybody does. We have self-motivated individuals as well. Not everybody thinks about the person beside them as much as what they think about the person that they are or they want to be, and they will do whatever they need to do to get to where they want to be. We do have individuals like that, and unfortunately, sometimes they climb the ranks.
That's so interesting to me, because that is largely a foreign concept, and I don't know if it's because I was raised in the church, and that is just like we mentioned, that foundation of morals and ideals of what you were based upon.
Right.
But that, even Nicole and I have talked about some political things and different things of late. That's just like, I can't justify certain things, like any reason for somebody to die or to kill somebody. I can't justify it in my mind.
Yeah.
And I understand that war happens and there's legalized killings and stuff like that, but I can't seem to justify it.
Well, it's funny you say that, because one of the things that I had to get settled in my mind was, as a Christian, could I take someone's life? I mean, I carried a gun for 34 years. I've been in situations where, Ben, it was close. I mean, very close. And, you have to settle that about, can you do that? And I go back to Romans chapter 13, which says, you are to obey authority, and the Lord has given them a sword for a reason. So I thought, well, if it's okay with God, then it's probably okay. Not that I want to do it, but... Yeah.
So So what led to you retiring from policing?
I think coming to the understanding that I had done everything that I could do, and that I felt that staying longer wasn't going to do anything but probably add to the stress and the health issues and shorten my lifespan. So so I it was quite methodic. I had an offer to go to the Northwest Territories with another advancement, but my wife had just started a new career with McCain. She had stayed home with our family for 25 years, and she had started a new career in the research department at McCain's. And I thought, she's followed me around the country for 30 years. Now it's not the time for me to.
It's her turn.
Yeah, absolutely.
Did you bop around a lot? Where were you stationed across the country?
Regina, Ladysmith, Vancouver Island, Souk, Vancouver Island, Campobello, Florenceville to Woodstock, and then I went into plainclothes section at a Woodstock, then back into uniform as a corporal in Woodstock, then got promoted to a sergeant in Woodstock, then went back into plainclothes in charge of the unit as a staff sergeant, and then returned for my last 5 years as a staff as the district commander for this area. So at that time there were 4 detachments: Nakawik, Woodstock, Heartland, and Florenceville, that were under my direct supervision, my direct command, I guess. Not my direct supervision. We had sergeants and corporals, and So
Did you have a favorite place where you served?
You know what? I don't. I mean, I have.
I'm sure you have fond memories of each of them.
Well, it is. I've always said I've never had a bad posting, and I think that's simply because of the attitude that I took into it. Now, some of them were quite difficult. Campobello was a one-man detachment. Wow. Yeah, there was some interesting stuff that happened there, let me tell you. But again, it was a wonderful time. We still have great friends. This past month, we had friends from Vancouver Island we hadn't seen in many years, who came east, and they spent 3 days with us, and it was just like we hadn't seen each other since Sunday, type thing. So it was, it's been a neat ride. Been a neat ride.
What led you? Because I think it was a little bit of time from your retiring to starting your blueberry farm.
Right.
Why blueberries? What was that journey like?
Well, I think I and my son share the same thing. We're always opportunity seekers. And so what started it was, prior to this, he and I, my son Brad, he and I formed a little company, and we started purchasing woodlot. And so as we were purchasing the woodlot on a couple of pieces that we had, they were over around Boyce Town, Doketown area, and the power line ran through them, and on the power line was all these wild blueberries. So we were talking about it, and I said, why don't we look about seeing if we could harvest blueberries on the power line? Oh, so we contacted NB Power and went through the jigs and the reels, and they said, well, we don't have an issue with it, actually, because it's going to keep the stuff down, and he says, except private woodland, you have to. So we were looking at that, and then we had an opportunity to purchase some high bush blueberries. So the wild ones are low bush, and these ones were cultivated high bush. And so there was a local person who was getting, they had bought a place that had 300 plants. They didn't want them. They didn't. So So we bought 200 plants from them. And we went out and moved them, transplanted them to a piece of ground that we rented. And we picked the crop off them, and then the next year, transplanting, as you know, in farming, it takes, when you transplant a plant, you really cause it to go into stress, and they did stunt for a couple of years. But we said, you know what? Like, there might be something here. So we put the 200 in. Then the following year, we bought another 200. And we got connected with Craig Ramsey from Ramsey's Blueberries in Salisbury, or Riverglade. And Craig was just a wonderful wealth of information on what we needed for plants and and he had been at it for about 9 years. And so we just kept purchasing, and the next year we bought 1,000, the next year we bought 500 more, the next year we bought 400 more, and before you know it, we've got 2,200 plants. And, the internet will tell you that you will have berries in 5 years. They'll be mature in 5 years. That might be true in California. It's not true in New Brunswick. It's more like 10. Because of our climate. They don't grow quite as quickly. But this year we took over a ton of berries. Wow. 2,200 pounds of berries off of the plants. Now, that's only about a pound a bush. We're actually only picking off of about 600 plants right now. They should get to the point of about 5 pounds a bush. So we should be gleaning 10,000 pounds a year off of them. And the market, people love them. We love, and coming to pick there, you've been there, Ben. We really try to make it very easy and clean. And
how many years has it been since then? Has it been 2 or 3 years?
Since you were there?
Yeah,
it's been 2 years, I think. Yeah, maybe 3. So they're much bigger plants now, and we're still getting and this is the first few years we didn't open up. We just picked ourselves because we didn't want to not have the product for people to come. We left about 500 pounds in the field this year, just simply because we just couldn't get to them. They ripened before we could get to them, and that's okay. The birds can have those, but maybe not 500, maybe about 300. But in any event.
And you pick by hand with your pickers, or?
You pick by hand. They hang like grapes. And you just have to put your hand underneath and roll your thumbs, and you got a handful. Put it in your box. My 87-year-old dad, 85-year-old mom come down. We get a chair for Dad, set him into a bush, and because some of them are producing 10, 12 pounds a bush right now. And so he could sit there and pick till he doesn't want to pick anymore. Well, he eats more. So, and we tell people, look, we encourage them, especially the kids, that you got to eat. You got to eat the berries. We don't use pesticides. We've never had to use pesticides. We use a little herbicide to keep down the grasses, but primarily it's mulch, and they're rain washed, it's been a neat growing experience for both of us. Brad is the brains behind the operation. I'm the brawns. But
I'm surprised your hands aren't still blue from blueberry season. Mine would be so stained.
It's really neat. It's really neat. We wanted and still want people to have that wow factor. We want that when they come in and they go, wow, this is here in Centerville? And that's been our biggest issue, is that we're still getting about 30 to 40% of the people coming saying, we never knew you were here. So we've got to do a better job marketing and getting our name out there that they can come and pick. Now, we also have raspberries. We put them in 3 years ago. And first year was okay. Second year, we killed them by mistake. That's all right. And then last year, we had them, and they were really nice. They did really well. and people loved them. So I'm just finishing pruning them now, and so they'll be ready again for next year. And
Did you have any prior gardening or agronomy experience before getting into blueberries?
none whatsoever. None whatsoever. Like I said, Brad is the brains behind the operation, so he did some research and said, here's what we have to do. And, you know, one of the things about blueberries, people will get 2 or 3 plants, take them home and plant them, and then nothing happens. Usually it's because of the pH of the soil. Potato ground is about 6.8, 6.7. Blueberries need about a 4.2.
Wow.
Yeah. So
I knew they liked it acidic, but that is very acidic.
That is very acidic. So we have to every year, like you cannot use nitrogen-based fertilizers on them. You have to use not sulfur-based. Oh, isn't that terrible? It'll come to me. But we use ammonium sulfate primarily, as our fertilizer. Yeah, and that helps keep
the pH down.
Keep the pH down. Yeah, and a blueberry, they're an odd plant. They don't. You have to fertilize all the way around them. They only take up from where their root. Like if they take up from this side, they won't pass it on to the other side of the plant. It's only that area that grows, which is why sometimes you will see in them where you have one side that's just all full of berries and the other one's not. It didn't get the nutrients. It didn't get the nutrients.
They're temperamental plants.
They can be. They can be. And you can stress them out really easily. Yeah, so what we're learning still. So we've been at it since 2017. And so we got 8 years. And but again, it's coming along very nicely, and there's lots of berries, and it's been really neat to see. We had this, there's so many neat stories, but we had this immigrant family come to us. They found us online or Facebook, and they came, or they might have bought some at the farm market, whatever. Anyway, they were from China, and they had a 13-year-old little girl who translated for them. They didn't speak much English at all. She was amazing. She was just a great kid, you could tell. And so she was doing all the transactions that we needed and the picking. And the first thing she did when she jumped out of the car, she goes, "We're here to pick blueberries." I said, "Well, you've come to the right place." And so they picked, and after as she was going out, she rolled down the window and said, "Thank you, I love you." And I thought, oh, that's just so sweet. But they were, they had never seen anything like that before. So that's neat stuff.
That's the biggest thing that I like about growing our vegetables and stuff here. And Nicole doesn't like me for it because I love giving stuff away.
Yeah.
Whether it's eggs or carrots or anything, because I'm just like, try this. You need to try how good this is.
Yeah.
Because it's not the same as what you get from the grocery store.
No.
Yeah.
And people have told us that. We haven't been able to replicate your berry anywhere. It's not what Costco sells. So no, Costco's typically like 90% of all the blueberries in Canada are produced in the lower mainland BC. So then Ontario picks up most of the other, most of what's left. So yeah, there's not very many high bush blueberry farms in our area. But
there's a lot of low bush down in
the southern part of the province in the northeast
area.
Yeah, St. Andrews, St. Stephen, Peniac, and then when you get up to Trackety, Shiloh, up on the north, then there's wild ones as well, and a lot in Maine and Quebec, and of course Nova Scotia. I
don't think I've ever had a blueberry that wasn't a New Brunswick blueberry.
Okay.
Because I always get what would be Tuttenhams, I think.
Right.
Usually they're boxes. But,
yeah.
Or yours, of course. But high bush is a little different. They're bigger.
Well, we're getting to the point where we may not be able to pick them by hand, all of them. So we're actually thinking about maybe doing some frozen. But we're just at the infant stages of looking into that. So, but we'll see what happens. Yeah, but it's been a wonderful time, and it's a neat thing that my son and I can do, and we involve the grandchildren. Kyle, he's our 10-year-old grandson. He's my VP of operations. Ben, he could sit down with you and tell you just about everything that I just told you. He's been with us. He runs the the operations and gets people where they need to go to pick, and picks himself. And he made $1,000 this year picking blueberries himself. 10 years old. And so yeah, it's
Farm kids.
Farm kids. They are. Yeah. The oldest one, Liam, he's involved too, but now he also has a little campfire. I have a sawmill as well, though I don't have enough time. And so we use the slab wood. He chunks it up into campfire wood and has sold it, and he did really well this summer. So even with the ban on, he did really well. So yeah, neat stuff.
But now we're at a blueberry season.
Yep.
And you're going to have a little downtime, and I hear you've been doing some writing.
Yes. This started a number of years ago when my son Brad was 3 or 4 years old, and we'd be in the car driving, and you know how sometimes children have difficult going long distances, or to what to them is long distance. And so to pass the time, I would tell him stories about this pony that my brother and I had. Now, it's true that my brother and I did have a pony, and his name was Rusty. In the stories, Rusty is fantastic. In reality, Rusty was as dumb as a bag of hammers, you know what I mean? And bit. Oh, he loved to bite you, or he would throw you off. If you were riding him, he'd look for the next water hole, wherever there was water, and he'd run as hard as he could, and then stop and put his neck down. Because we always rode bareback. But anyway, so I would tell these stories. So if we were going to a wedding, then I would tell the story of Rusty going to a wedding. Or if we were going to the circus, and Rusty went to the circus, and Rusty saved Christmas, and Rusty went to the dentist, and so I had all 7 or 8 of these stories. So Brad grows out of it, and we have our twins come along, and they get to be 3 or 4 years old, and they're doing the same. And so one night, Brad says, "Dad, tell him a Rusty story." Now this is 4 years since I told any of you. I said, "Tell him a what?" He goes, "A Rusty story. You know about Rusty the pony. Remember? You remember when Rusty..." He had remembered everything. So I started retelling the stories. I got a little smarter this time. I said, "I'm going to write them down because I don't know what's coming next." So anyway, I wrote these stories down, and they stayed dormant for 30 years. And then grandchildren started to come along, and the Rusty stories started to make their appearance again. Only this time, one of my daughters is artistic. And in fact, she had illustrated and did one of the stories in grade 4 as a show and tell. She had done that story and brought it in to school. So she illustrated for me for a couple of these stories. And so then I said to her, because she has a 10-year-old daughter, and I said, how about we get Adeline to color them? So she would be part of the illustration. And then we're thinking as well to do doing some online, that another one of my granddaughters, Grace, who's a twin to Kyle, is going to do some narration and read them on, and we'll be able to have an online thing too. So if I can show you this.
Yeah.
Well, so this is Rusty.
Hold that up so you can focus.
Yeah, sorry I ripped the corner there, but that's okay. So that's Rusty, and this is called a storyboard. And so this is one of the stories, and my daughter drew all of the characters, and so we're going to be putting that out fairly soon. That one and Rusty Saves Christmas are hopefully we're trying to get them out before Christmas. I don't know whether we will or not, but anyway. And so of course with the extra grandchildren, the new stories coming along include all of them. And about book number 4, Rusty finds a new friend. His name is Dunster, and Dunster's a dragon. So Dunster doesn't live in the barn with Rusty. He lives in the tin building, because if he lived in the barn and he coughed, he'd catch everything on fire, and so he has to live in the tin building, which is right beside the barn where Rusty lives. And then those two have adventures with the other grandchildren. Yeah, so.
What's your dream for these books? For them to go?
More legacy. You know, I mean, you never know. I mean, it could be the next Paw Patrol. Who knows? But really, Ben, I felt the legacy of leaving something for the next generations to be able to have and look at and say, "Ah, man, this is neat." So that's really the main. Yeah,
Are they going to be out in time for Christmas?
I sure hope so. I sure hope so. Rusty Goes to a Wedding is done. All of the illustrations are done. Rusty Saves Christmas is in process. So now it's a matter of getting them to the book stage. We've got them all blocked out so that the words go with whatever picture. So yeah. So
Just needs published.
just needs published. Yeah, it does. And I think we're going to be self-publishing, and then just have them online probably, and but I guess one never knows, do we? I mean, yeah, but they're very they're Rusty Goes to a Wedding is actually based on a real wedding in my family, and so it talks about how my brother and I were excited about the wedding happening, and we were ushers. We didn't know what that meant, but Chris, my brother Chris, knew that you got to sit at the front table and get fed first. So that was his thing for doing it. And then on the day of the wedding, my aunt got delayed at the hairdresser's, and her hair she had to leave wet. And so when she had bought a new hat, and she had this new hat in the back seat of the car, and so my uncle just said to her, "Well, you just stick your head out the window, and that'll blow dry your hair while we go to the wedding." I don't know, he said that jest. In the story, she actually does that, and then but as they're going along with the window down, and they're going they were late, so they're going a little fast to get to the wedding. Well, the wind picks up the hat, and it flies out the window. So we get to the wedding, and just as the wedding's about to start, there's a commotion at the back, and the door flies open, and in comes Rusty, all lathered in sweat from running, wearing the hat. So so then after the wedding, they go outside and they find Rusty tied to the trunk, to the back of the vehicle, eating hay out of the trunk, wearing the hat and a sign that said "Just Married." So so it's yes, some liberties have been taken, obviously, but
Real stories with a little bit of hyperbole.
yes, and one of the things about it is that unfortunately my aunt passed away about a year ago with cancer, so she isn't going to be able to see it, but my uncle will definitely see it. So yeah. So and then of course with Never Too Late, we're busy. I write music, and we've been doing this since 2009, and we're getting ready. We're doing a show on Sunday morning at Trinity Wesleyan, and then we're going to be getting ready for our Christmas concerts through the month, the end of November through until the 21st of December. So lots of stuff on the go.
Busy man.
Yeah, but very good. A good busy. Yeah.
Mitch, thank you so much. I appreciate you.
Yeah, pleasure. And I appreciate you letting me plug my book. And
You'll have to let me know when it's finally finished. We'll
Yes.
get a copy for the boys.
oh yeah, for sure. For sure. Well, again,
Awesome.
pleasure.